What would you do if you knew today was your last day? For Socrates, the father of philosophy, his final hours were not filled with despair, but with teaching, serenity, and the conviction that the soul never dies. Plato's dialogue, Phaedo, records these moments. The setting is a prison in Athens, around 399 BC, on the very day when Socrates was condemned to drink poison hemlock. Friends and disciples gathered around him, Phaedo, Crito, Apollodorus, their hearts heavy, yet eager to hear his final words. Instead of silence, Socrates gave them one last lesson. He had been accused of corrupting the youth and of impiety, not believing in the gods of the city and introducing new divinities. He could have begged for mercy, but he chose truth over survival. For Socrates, living falsely was worse than dying. To betray philosophy, to abandon the pursuit of wisdom, would have been a death of the soul long before the body. So he accepted his sentence with calm resolve. This is the first lesson of his final day: integrity. A good life is not measured by length, but by fidelity to truth. The second lesson is serenity. While his friends trembled, Socrates spoke with humor and gentleness. He reminded them that philosophy itself is preparation for death. Death, he explained, is simply the separation of soul from body. And if the soul belongs to what is higher and eternal, then death is not destruction, but liberation. Throughout life, the body distracts the soul with desires and fears. The philosopher trains to master these passions so that when the final hour comes, the soul departs unshackled. Socrates then turned to a deeper question. If the soul is liberated at death, does it survive, or does it vanish into nothingness? He offered his first argument, the cyclical argument. All things come to be from their opposites: wakefulness from sleep, strength from weakness, life from death. If death did not give way to life, he reasoned, the cycle would collapse and existence itself would end. Therefore, the dead must live again, and the soul must endure. His disciples listened, comforted by this vision. Philosophy, they realized, was not abstract speculation. It was the search for what makes the soul unbreakable. Socrates pressed further. Philosophy, he said, trains us to die before death, to detach from illusions, and to love what is eternal. This is why he welcomed his fate with peace. He had spent his life purifying the soul through reason and virtue, and now death would simply complete the journey. After presenting the cycle of life and death, Socrates offered another proof, the argument from recollection. He asked, how do we recognize truths we were never taught? A child, for example, may understand equality or justice without ever being instructed in their essence. This suggests the soul already knew these realities before birth. Learning, then, is not filling an empty mind with information. It is remembering, awakening what the soul has seen when it contemplated the eternal forms. This means the soul existed before the body. If it lived before, it is not absurd to believe that it will also live after. Socrates' friends pressed him. If the soul survives death, what is its nature? Is it strong enough to endure forever? He responded with the si est affinity argument. The body is material, visible, and perishable. The soul, however, is invisible, immaterial, and akin to the divine. Just as the forms are eternal, so too is the soul, which shares their nature. It is not subject to decay like the body. Thus, when death comes, the body returns to dust, but the soul, purified from passions and guided by wisdom, returns to dwell among eternal realities. This led to a practical question. How does one prepare the soul for this destiny? Socrates answered with his third lesson, the discipline of philosophy. Philosophy, he said, is not idle argument. It is the art of caring for the soul, freeing it from ignorance, fear, and slavery to desire. Every act of justice, every pursuit of truth, every act of temperance is a training of the soul, a step away from corruption, a step toward eternity. This is why true philosophers live simply. They do not cling to wealth or power, for such things die with the body. Instead, they seek what endures, wisdom, friendship, virtue, for these are the treasures that prepare the soul to stand firm when death arrives. Socrates told his friends that fear of death is rooted in ignorance. If one knows the soul's destiny, death loses its terror. Thus his serenity was not denial, but the fruit of lifelong practice. For a just soul, death is not the end, it is homecoming. Socrates then spoke of the destiny of the soul. Not all souls share the same fate. Much depends on how one has lived. A soul devoted to truth and purified from excess will dwell with the gods in realms of clarity and peace. It will be freed from the cycle of rebirth. But a soul corrupted by passions, greed, violence, lust, remains restless after death. It wanders, tied again to earthly desires. Here Socrates introduced a moral dimension. Immortality is not only a fact of nature, it is also a call to live virtuously. For if the soul survives, then our choices matter beyond this life. Every act of justice strengthens the soul. Every act of vice chains it more tightly. This was his third great lesson, hope and courage. Hope because the soul is destined for more than decay. Courage because we must shape our souls for that destiny. Philosophy, then, is training for eternity. To live simply, to practice virtue, to purify desires. These are exercises of the soul's immortality. Socrates reminded his friends, the soul is most like the divine, immortal and intelligible. The body is most like the human, mortal and perishable. Therefore, he said, when the soul is freed from the body, it goes to what is pure, unchanging, everlasting. The philosopher should welcome this passage, not resist it. His calmness astonished his companions. They wept at the thought of losing him, but he spoke to them with comfort, not despair. Even at the edge of death, Socrates showed humor. He debated, asked questions, and challenged assumptions, just as he had done his entire life. His courage was contagious. It showed that wisdom is not theory, but practice, not only about living well, but also about dying well. For Socrates, philosophy was never a game. It was the care of the soul, the only treasure that death cannot take away. This conviction inspired his disciples, many of whom went on to carry his teaching forward. Above all, Plato, who recorded these last conversations. And through Plato's writing, the serenity of Socrates at death became one of the most powerful legacies in the history of thought. As the final moment arrived, Socrates prepared to drink the poison. His friends wept, but he reassured them, no evil can happen to a good man in life or after death. For Socrates, virtue was the soul's true protection. Wealth, power, and health may be lost, but the just soul remains unshaken. Then he spoke his last enigmatic words. Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Pay the debt and do not neglect it. Asclepius was the god of healing. By offering him a cock, Socrates implied something profound, that death itself is a kind of cure, a healing of the soul from the limits of the body. He drank the hemlock calmly. He walked until his legs grew heavy, then lay down as instructed. His final breath was taken in peace. Thus ended the life of Socrates, but not his teaching. His last day became his greatest lesson. What can we learn from him today? That integrity is more precious than survival, that serenity comes from truth, that courage is born of hope, and above all, that death is not the end. If we live with virtue, the soul will endure, freed from corruption, destined for eternity. So ask yourself, how are you preparing your soul? What virtues are you cultivating? What illusions are you letting go? Philosophy is not for tomorrow, but for today. To live with integrity, to act with justice, to seek wisdom every day. If we practice this, death will lose its terror. It will appear not as destruction, but as a passage into what is everlasting. This is the final lesson of Socrates. The body may die, but the soul never does. And philosophy is the art of preparing for this truth. Even after 2,400 years, his voice still speaks. His calm courage at death reminds us that wisdom is the path to freedom. So let us take up his challenge, live with integrity, face life with serenity, have courage, never lose hope. If this journey inspired you, subscribe to the channel. Together let us rediscover the wisdom of the ancients and care for our souls, for they are immortal.